What's up, everybody? MattyB. We're in 2021, and since our hiatus, or my hiatus, we've decided to do things a little differently at AST. And you've noticed Connor Kraft has been on with me for the last couple episodes, and we decided that we're going to do this together. We have a lot of conversations around a lot of different topics that we consider important in today's world, and respectively, we're from two different generations. So I think that the perspective of both of us will hopefully generate value for the listeners, but also we are really doing this for our own minds to continue to have conversations, and those can be expanded upon as our world continues to evolve and change faster than I have seen in my entire life. And I think my perspective is changing rapidly because of talking to Connor on a lot of different things, because I come from a different generation that doesn't inherently utilize a lot of the things at a young age that I utilize today, meaning I didn't have access to a lot of those things. And even if you take it a generation further, there is a lot to wrap your head around, and having conversations with intelligent people, or what I consider to be intelligent people from different walks of life, meaning different age brackets, is highly beneficial. So that is what's going on with AST. I took a break. I needed to. And after much reflection, we're going to go ahead and duo this thing. And so, Connor Kraft, what's up?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm super excited that we get to do this together. This has been something I've wanted to do for a while. We've kind of thrown around the idea. I was on the first episode, really enjoyed it. And it honestly just kind of made sense given the fact that we have conversations as frequently and as extensively as we do. And they seem to be occurring more and more often. And I think for me, one of the reasons why I think this is important, not only for us, but potentially for other people, is it's giving us a chance to think out loud and document our thought process and where we're thinking about things, where it may change. And I don't think society necessarily always encourages that nowadays. And it's frowned upon to be wrong and to change your perspective. And I think that if I had to bet money, I would bet that we're going to be wrong with some things that we say on the podcast. And I would also bet that there's going to be things that we change our mind on. And I think it's important to have each other's perspective, to change each other's minds, to challenge each other, to challenge the people that are listening, and for them to challenge us. I don't know how many people are listening, don't know how many people will listen, but at the end of the day, I think that's what life's about. It's a constant and ongoing learning process. We can learn from each other and the community that is created around this, and potentially at some point be joined by some other bright-minded people who are experts in their fields. And I think for me, throughout my life, I've learned in two ways. I've learned from people that come from either a different walk of life, like you mentioned previously, and we challenge each other and learn. But then I also really enjoy learning from experts. I think that's the best way to really learn something. You can go to school and you can read a textbook and you can learn. That's awesome, and that is one way to learn. And I've done that. But I think you get a whole different perspective and a real quick crash course in how to do things right if you get it from people who have been in the driver's seat.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. And for me, I love having conversations. Throughout my life, conversations have helped me grow and come to solutions for problems that I think are important. But you have to be able to conversate with somebody willing to dive into the subjects that are of interest to you. So, yeah, we are like-minded, but we definitely are not afraid to give our perspective if it's different than one another's. And somebody might actually become a winner of maybe a disagreement later, because a lot of the things that, are important to me right now, I'm speculating on, right? But I'm making the speculation based on the best information that I have for whether it be my retirement, my business goals, my personal freedoms that may be looking a little different than they were in 2019. And to process those feelings and emotions dude, I think you have to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think it's also like it's a good way to hold yourself accountable. Like whether it's you're telling one person or you're telling many people where you're placing your bets, especially when we're talking about things that we're speculating on. It's good, and it's also, I think, another reason I'm excited to do this and be able to document this is hopefully set an example of what it looks like to have a healthy disagreement or a healthy conversation with people, because we don't always see that. I think oftentimes what's going to get the most clicks isn't always what is the healthiest. And I think there is a way to disagree with someone, and I'm sure we'll have disagreements on like things we speculate on, but then when the mics turn off, like it doesn't matter. It really doesn't, and it doesn't make or break a friendship or the respect that you should have for someone. And so just healthy intellectual conversations.
And hopefully that starts conversations with anyone that is listening to people that they come in contact with, and the conversation just continues to happen people to people, because that is what I particularly enjoy, right? Like I really like people's stories because they provide you real life perspective. And there is a lot of information that can be learned and absorbed, not in person, but maybe it's my generation, maybe it's just a human characteristic that I really like to hear shit from the horse's mouth in order for me to like immediately reflect upon the subject. And there's just something about that person to person conversation. And dude, I could say it in the rooms of AA, in your schooling with your peers and your teachers, but dude, conversation is the starter to solutions. The problem seems to be that the solution gets squashed as a possibility when there's disagreements.
Yes.
And so that is stupid in nature. And I understand that it's emotional because I am an emotional guy, but I do try to revert back to, hey, what about trying to put yourself in that other person's shoes? Can you envision that and then relate to how they are expressing themselves?
And we are so much, not you and I, yes, you and I, but people in general have so much in common with literally everyone else that they are so unaware of, because as we talked about previously, the way that technology has infiltrated our lives, it has caused us to be separated and put into these categories based on what we're interested in or what we believe or what we talk about. And I think we have begun to assume, like, we're in categories where people are so similar to us that we assume that either everyone is like us or everyone has nothing to do with what we are doing, or we're not similar at all. And I think that if we can kind of bridge that gap somehow by just doing what one of the most human things you can do is, which is have a conversation.
Kind of separates you from the animals, right? You have intellect, you can talk about things, you can conceptualize things.
Exactly. Like that is what makes us as humans, Homo sapiens. Yeah. And so I would like to use that to our full advantage, especially when, technology is, like I said, infiltrated our lives and COVID has separated us from the real world. I think conversations are now more important than ever, which is one of the driving forces that brought us to have these very long, extensive phone calls, which have now transitioned into, podcast, long-form conversations.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of long-form just based on what I watch, view, listen to, because I really love context and basically feeling what that person is saying, and that oftentimes really only can be done in long-form content. I mean, that's what I absorb most of.
Absolutely. And I think really in order to ensure that we're not only doing that with ourselves, but we're also getting that same message across and setting that example and doing it in a way that other people get value from the conversation. For those of you who are listening, we do sincerely appreciate and encourage feedback, whether it's positive or, constructive. We're not going to be offended. We want to make sure that we're getting better. We're talking about interesting and relevant topics. Can't guarantee that we're going to just talk about something that we have no interest in.
Or no knowledge on,
or no
right?
knowledge
because you have to be knowledgeable on the subjects that you discuss, which is separate from how you feel about something, because that's just based on the information you know. You're allowed to have feelings.
And we're totally open to learning new things.
Correct.
I think it's just a matter of, not assuming if we're given feedback that we're going to immediately act on it, but if we're open to feedback and we want to make sure we're getting better and putting out this content. So whatever medium you're listening to this on, either reach us out on socials. If there's a comment option, comment, and please let us know how we can make this podcast as valuable as we can possibly make it for you all. And I don't know about you, Matt, but I am definitely looking forward to what the future has in store for us.
I am definitely looking forward to having conversations on this podcast with you and continuing to learn more about myself, as well as maybe some other people listening to this. So please give us feedback. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more detail about our background, we do have 2 separate podcasts that were delivered earlier, right when this podcast launched. And Adapt, Survive, Thrive is the overall picture. And I think it is relevant because that is a cycle that needs to be repeated in an efficient manner to, in my opinion, reach the goals that I would like to attain. And it might even be a survival necessity going forward, because we are not in a world that I see as predictable. Let's put it that way.
And through this podcast and discussing the changes that we have to adapt to, I think we'll get through it and we'll survive and thrive.
So let's start some conversations, people. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.